Welcome to Myers Metal Detectors, located in sunny Tampa, Florida, where we sell nothing but fun and adventures, treasure hunting gear, and anything you can imagine for metal detecting. Give us a call, 813-237-1939. Happy hunting and dig deeper.
Live from sunny Florida, it's Treasure Talk.
Welcome, folks.
Hey,
Welcome.
hey.
Hey, and welcome back, Jeff. I'm so happy you're back. Now my job gets a little bit easier because I don't have to worry about running the live stream. That gets a little scary, doesn't it?
Oh, well, I guess I've been doing it so long. Joey did a good job.
Yes, he did. I forgot to put my banner down.
Oh,
There we go.
there you go.
Yeah, Big Poppy did an okay job, but I had to run the live stream, and it was a little scary from time to time. You know, making sure everything lines up and it works right. So you make us look real professional, Jeff. So thank you for that, and
Well,
thank you, Big Poppy, for helping out and stepping in.
that's right. He's going to be my sausage guy, I think.
Yes, some Italian sausage. Yes,
That's right. Not that little thing he likes to give out with detectors and stuff. Because I'm coming down there in September. You know that, and we're going to
yes,
hunt.
yes.
And so there's Big Poppy. He just popped on. I asked him about who makes the best Italian sausage in the area, and he gave me a name. So we'll see.
Well, we'll find out if it's actually the best.
That's right.
But I guess we've got an exciting guest tonight. We're going to talk about some new products, so I guess we better get started.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Of course, today's show is brought to you by your friends at Myers Metal Detectors, where we sell fun and adventure. And of course, the views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by the Treasure Talk guests and members belong solely to the guests and members and not necessarily to Phil Myers, Jocelyn Myers, Myers Metal Detectors, or Jeff Moan. And of course, the most important part of Treasure Talk is our purpose. And the purpose is to promote the hobby of metal detecting and treasure hunting and to educate our members in a fun, informative manner. And it's always nice when we have a guest who's also a metal detectorist and a manufacturer. So
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And we have a few of those. So
yes, we
I'm
do.
looking in the chat, and people are welcoming me back. And yes, indeedy, I am happy to be back. It's one of those things. We come home on a trip and get COVID. What are you going to do? Yeah, So I guess that's the pretty much par for the course anymore. But I'm over it. I'm better. I'm ready to rock and roll. Heading back to the gym in the morning. Probably going to die because I've been off 3 weeks. I don't know. We'll see. So anyways, we've got a fantastic guest tonight. He has been with us before. If you'll notice that the gear that both Phil and I are wearing tonight is courtesy of Steve, and he makes fantastic products. He's got something new he's working on that we're going to talk about tonight. He's going to show us, plus all the other stuff that he does. And he's just really a top flight individual, makes just outstanding products, stands behind him 100%. He's got some really good giveaways for us tonight. I think all of y'all are registered for them and ready to win. And I've got the winners right here, and y'all are going to be happy, happy, happy. So why don't we go ahead and bring him on, Phil? What do you think?
Absolutely. Let's bring him on.
This is Steve from Steve's Detector Rods. Hey, Stever.
Hi guys, how are you? Thanks for having me on tonight. Appreciate it.
Oh, we're happy to have
good
you.
for the shape we're in.
Yeah. So before we get started, you're in Oklahoma. Tell us exactly where you're at and what the temperature is there.
Yeah. Well, I am in central Oklahoma, not too far from Oklahoma City, a town called Norman. Of course, that's the location of the University of Oklahoma. So that's where I'm located. And as far as temperature goes, if I tell you the temperature today, it won't be so bad. We're in the mid 90s today, but give it a couple of days here. We've had just a little bit of rain and clouds here the last couple of days, so it's kept us a little cooler. But we'll be back up to 100 to 105 the rest of this week. So it's been a warm summer.
Yeah, it's been hot here too. It's been what's it been today, Josh? 96? 96, and it didn't rain, so my air is just running nonstop, and I think it might be 78 in the house. I try to keep it cool for the show, but the air just is not shutting off today.
Can't
'Cause
keep up. Huh?
there's no clouds in the sky, and it normally gets 90. It's going to rain, but it's not
Yeah.
raining now. So, um,
Well, if it's 78 in your house, Jocelyn's probably wearing a dang sweater.
yes, yeah, no, she's not, but she does like it warm. She don't mind it being 80 degrees, but I can't do the show at 80 degrees. So because she's from Key West, that's what she reminds me daily.
Oh yeah.
I'm from Key West. I'm used to the warm weather, so I don't know. It's just I can't run the live stream at that temperature. I'd be sweating here.
That's a
So
little warm.
yeah. So tell us about what's going on with Steve's detector rods.
Well, one thing I'll tell you first of all is I'm working on an upgrade to the website. I just spoke with a customer today who was kind of in a little bit of a bind. He was heading out on a trip and was having some issues with his equipment and was heading to, I believe he said Puerto Rico. But anyway, he's going to do some beach detecting, and he realized at the last point he was so worried about having his detector and everything ready, he didn't have a travel handle for his scoop. In the past, he said he had mailed his full length handle ahead of him to his mother's place there at Puerto Rico. But this time he's not going to his mother's place. He's going to a different part of Puerto Rico. So he never thought about getting that handle down there. So he called me last minute today and said, "Hey, do you happen to have a two-piece travel scoop handle?" Which I did, and I was able to help him with. But we got to talking about Excaliburs because he's an Excalibur user. And he said he just got was needing an Excalibur shaft, but didn't know where to get one. And said he'd been on my website a few days ago, and it looked like I didn't have anything for an Excalibur. Well, of course I do. But as I told him, I'm a little better at building shafts than I am being a webmaster. So my web page got behind. But the good news is I did get at least a part of an update done. So more of the products that I offer are now shown on the website. So if anybody, I always tell people if there's something you need or something you'd like to know, can I do it? Can I build it? Can we custom build something? Which a lot of times I can. Just send me an email and ask. But as of 2 days ago, there's a lot more of the things that I build more routinely now reflected on the webpage with pricing and all that. So that's one good thing. Getting that website updated. And here later on in the summer, there'll be a complete update to the whole site. But for now, at least I have the products pretty current.
Yeah, I have the exact same problem, Steve. You getting the products. I have them in the store, like I have your shafts, I have your handles in the store, and a lot of times they don't make it onto the web page because I sell a lot in the store, and it takes me forever because I'm the same way. The
Yeah.
website is done last. So, folks, if you have a question on a product and you don't see it on my site, by all means, please call me because I probably have it and just haven't updated the website because that takes a lot of time and that gets done last.
Better get Big Pappy on that.
Yeah, he could help me with that. But tell us a little bit about the Deus 2 products. Are you doing anything for Deus now?
Yeah, I have. At first, to back up a little bit, and this might be helpful information background for some people. It is difficult to build shafts for machines that don't use round tubes. And the reason for that is all carbon fiber manufacturers produce round tubes. So you can get a round tube from just about anybody. The pricing is competitive because they all offer that tube. So it's easy to build an affordable shaft when you're using round tubes. So most of the manufacturers do use round tubes, which is a good thing, which makes it easy. But there are a few out there. Nocta Macro comes to mind, and of course XP, where their tubes are not round. And once you get into a non-round tube, it makes it a much more difficult shaft to produce for the reason that the manufacturing technique for a round carbon fiber tube is pretty simple. The manufacturing technique for a non-round tube is more difficult. The companies have to produce a mold specific to your to the tube's size, to the tube shape, and those molds are expensive. They have to be purchased up front, and any deviation at all in length or whatever requires a new mold. So for example, if I have a Equinox shaft and I have a customer say, hey, can you build me an extra long lower rod? That's no problem, because you can produce a carbon fiber tube in any length. They can be trimmed, et cetera, et cetera. But when you need a longer carbon fiber tube for one that you're having produced from a mold, you'd have to build a new mold for it. So it's much more difficult. It's much more expensive. So with all that said, I get a lot of customer requests. Can you build me a shaft for my Nocta Macro machine? I can't do that easily because of the non-round tubes. So that's what I was faced with the Deus 2. I've had lots of customers say, there's some things they don't like about the Deus 2 shaft. Can you build a carbon fiber shaft? And at first I was not going to do that, just because of some of the issues we mentioned. But I have had so many customers ask that I decided, what could I do to build a carbon fiber shaft for the Deus that would be similar in function, but would utilize round tubes? And of course, to do that, you're starting from scratch, because you need to produce all the parts and everything like that would work with a round Deus shaft as opposed to the shape that the Deus shaft is. So it's been a long process. I've been purchasing molds and talking to suppliers and trying to get that all in place. But we are pretty close to having to where I'm going to have something that can be field tested. Here's a look at it. This arm cuff is a 3D printed plastic arm cuff. In the production version, this will be carbon fiber. So this was just a print. It'll be a little bit smaller than what's shown here. I've revised it a little bit. But the nice thing about it is it won't require any holes in the shaft. It'll be a carbon fiber cuff that just clamps on using these 4 bolts that you can see here. So that will be the cuff. The handle is very similar to the current Deus handle. It's similar shape. And as far as the function of it, I wanted to keep that Deus functionality where you can collapse the shaft just like the Deus shaft does, where you can collapse it down for portability, travel, etc. So it will work the same way via this cam lock here. And then you see this white piece here, which of course is the remote control mount. Again, that's a prototype 3D printed piece that I had just for fitment purposes, fitment testing. But in the final version, that will be black. And then the lower rod will just operate the way that the rest of my shafts do, with another cam lock there where you can adjust the length in and out of that lower rod length. So that's a look at it. And here within the next couple of weeks, I should have a functional working prototype that I can have field tested. And yeah, great. I'm going to send it out to a couple of people, get some comments back. I think we're in pretty good shape. I did have this one checked out by a couple of Deus users, just this prototype. And like I said, this isn't sturdy enough for a field test. This was strictly to test to make sure the parts fit and everything fit the way it should before I had the molds produced. But when I get the first parts back now from my molds and put together a couple of shafts that are field test ready, I'm going to have that done, and then we should be ready to go after that. I'm real pleased with the way it turned out. One thing I would like to point out that I'm doing differently here. It's subtle, but I think it's important. The first time I had a Deus 2 in my hand, one of the things I noticed is when I was holding the machine and I went to move my thumb to adjust the buttons, to press the pinpoint button or whatever, what I immediately noticed was when I went to make that thumb motion, my thumb was hitting the side of the control box. That Deus 2 control box sticks out forward from the handle or backwards, whichever way you want to talk about, but it sticks out. And when you go to move your thumb to hit the button, you're hitting the side of the control box. So if you can see here, I'll try to put it up close. I've actually recessed the way the remote control mount fits, so that when the control box fits on here, I'll use my cell phone as an example. It's more flush with the front of that handle, and that makes those buttons a lot more accessible. It's an easier thumb motion to reach those buttons than the way it is on the stock shaft. So that's one thing that I changed. But like I say, this handle, it also is 3D printed plastic in this model. It will also be carbon fiber. So the only things plastic will be the remote control mount, and then of course the cam locks and the piece on the lower end of the rod to fit the coil. Everything else will be carbon fiber. Arm cuff will be carbon fiber. Handle will be carbon fiber. So it should be a nice light shaft. I think it maintains most of the nice features of the Deus shaft, the collapsibility and all, and yet at the same time, made with carbon fiber components. It should be nice and light, and I think it'll be well received. One of the things I've heard some people talk about, water hunters in particular, is that lower rod is a little bit flexible, especially for the guys that run it out real far. Taller users, it flexes in the water. It causes some issues in heavy surf with flex. Of course, with carbon fiber, that won't be an issue. It'll be a nice, sturdy shaft, and I think people will like it. It's just a matter of moving forward, getting it tested, and getting it ready for production. So I think it will be something that will be well received, and I'm looking forward to having that available.
Let me ask you something, Steve. On the plastic thing that you are going to hook the remote onto, are you putting some kind of a locking mechanism on that? Because the remote sometimes, especially if they're going to take it and dive with it, or you're hunting underwater, sometimes that remote will pop off. If there's a locking type mechanism on it to lock it down to make it that much more difficult would be beneficial. Are you looking at anything like that?
Yeah, actually, that is something that I did not know at first. Not being a Deus user myself, I was not aware of that issue. So when I made my mount to fit a round tube instead of a Deus shaped tube, I just basically mimicked the existing mount, but made it to where it fits into a round tube. Later on, I've had some customers mention to me just what you said, that there is an issue with that control box popping off. If you bump it or whatever, it's not held on, as securely as maybe they would like, and then you run the risk of losing that remote control. So one of the things that one of my customers pointed me to a guy, I think his name is Don, if I recall. But anyway, he owns Detecting Doodads, and he offers one of those mounts, but with a locking mechanism. And I've been in contact with him about whether he would like to supply those mounts for me, but made for a round tube. He already produced a prototype for me to check out. So I'm working with him, and I think what I'll do is offer that as an option. If you are somebody who isn't worried about that particular issue, I would use the mount that I produced. But if you want one with a locking mechanism, I'm working with him to where he'll supply those to me, and that can be an option on your shaft. Produce them, and if it turns out that everybody wants one, and nobody wants the standard model, they want one with the lock, then I'll probably either get those exclusively from him, or he and I will work out something where we kind of mass produce them. But that is something I'm considering.
Yeah, that's important, because I've had people say that they don't like they knock it off of the shaft all the time, because that mount system, I guess if they're a little jumpy with it, they can knock it off easily. So that would be a good thing. And then I've got a comment Jocelyn just handed me from Facebook, and it's from Tom Becker, and he says, "Steve, please make the ground bipod of the cuff bigger. I guess make the arm cuff bigger than the stock Deus 2 one. The stock one is too short. It's too
mine
short.
is going to be quite a bit taller than what's on the stock shaft. That was another thing that I kind of noticed. It's not very tall. Doesn't give you a lot of clearance when you're sitting on the ground. So it's going to be quite a bit taller.
Yeah, so that's a good feature. And your rod, I guess, is like the old S shape rod. That's what it is. And and it's round then on the bottom then, correct?
Yep. All the tubes are round. Yep.
Okay. That's easy enough.
Yeah, so like I said, I really like the way that Deus shaft collapses. That's pretty interesting concept there. And so I tried to maintain that so that this would function. I wanted it to be as similar as it could be to what Deus users are used to, and yet offer a few improvements, make it a little lighter weight, and like I said, to make that lower rod stiffer so we don't have any more. I also, of course, can make those lower rods then in any length that you need. I've had some folks say, I need a tall man lower rod, and I don't know if they're completely not available or just hard to come by, but that'll be no problem with this shaft once I have it ready. So,
yeah, I think that the standard shaft, if you are tall, the standard Deus shaft has a little wobble in it, so that's that's going to make that. Well, once it's I guess the standard shaft is not carbon fiber of the standard dais on the lower end.
No,
So
the lower is plastic, I believe.
yeah, so it gets
Yeah.
a little wobble in it, especially if you're in the water and you got it completely extended. You're going to have some wobble, so that'll take care of that too.
And we got a question from YouTube from Jean P. She wants to know, are you going to make a dive shaft as well for the dais too?
I probably can make a shaft. Now, to back up, being not a water hunter, being not a dais user, and being not a person who does diving, I don't know in my mind what somebody would want in a dive shaft to make it to where it would serve their needs. But with that said, what I imagine in my mind is something that's shorter, something that's
Yep.
more compact. That would be no problem at all. It would just be a custom, instead of using the standard length middle section, instead of this section here being the standard length, I would just make it shorter. And then the same thing with the lower rod. I would put a shorter lower rod on it. Or if somebody didn't need one to be collapsible, they just wanted a fixed length, from the handle to the coil, that could be done as well, no problem at all.
Okay. Now, are you going to do any colors?
I will do colors on them. The handle will be black. The handle is going to be black either way.
Right.
As far as the tube colors, yeah, I can do the tube colors in any color that anybody's interested in.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, we have the colors now for the Equinox too, and the camo.
Yes.
I've got a camo one sitting on my shelf in the shop. And then I'm going to ask you some questions because we did get some questions in off of Facebook off our list. This one
Yeah.
is Tom Becker, and he's asking, do the rods you make for the Equinox have a water drain hole for the coil end?
It's a good question. When I was designing that shaft, again, not a water hunter, so I don't have a personal feeling as to whether drain hole's good, drain hole's bad. And so I talked to several different people who are water hunters. They hunt exclusively on the beach. And I said, what are your thoughts, drain hole or no? And it was completely mixed. Some people said, yes, absolutely, drain hole. Other people said, I don't want a drain hole. All that does is lets water and sand into the shaft. So the opinions are kind of mixed there. So what I ended up doing is my standard shaft does not have a drain hole. But if you want one, it's easy to do. And I can do a drain hole in two different ways. One way is just, here at the bottom of the lower rod, I put a little, on the underneath side, put a little 1/4-inch hole, and that takes care of it. The other way, if people who are dais users will know this, the end of this plastic piece that the coil mounts to is hollow. It's hollow all the way through. And so I can also do that same thing. If you prefer it that way, I can, and I think, yeah, you can see it on this dais one that I have. It is hollow. I don't know if it's visible or not, but anyway, the dais one is going to be that way. I can do the same thing with an Equinox shaft. It's hollow from the bottom so that water just drains right out the shaft. Right. So it's an option. Anybody who wants it, I can do it, but the standard shaft doesn't have it, so you have to ask for it.
Well, Steve, I know with and Jeff does this too. With the dais too, we run that antenna, and it kind of looks cheesy. That antenna running up your shaft. Are you able to run that antenna wire right through that hole?
That hole probably not, because the coil bolt goes through there, and so you probably don't have enough clearance to go around there. I'm not sure, but I have had other people ask that same question, and again, I'm not so familiar with the dais that I realized that was the case. So what I've checked with for my, of course, putting that small hole here in the bottom of the shaft would allow an entry point. What I've checked with my supplier is, would I be able to put a small hole in the top of this mounting piece to allow the wire to exit the shaft? And they've already told me that's no problem at all. So I will have a version of this boot that has a hole large enough for the wire to exit. And then that way you would run it in through the bottom of the lower rod up the shaft, and it would come out through that mounting piece. So
yeah, that's how I have mine set up. Now I went ahead and I drilled the hole in the top and put a grommet in it because I run my antenna. I've got 2 dais tubes, one I use for land and one strictly for water. So I ran the antenna up through the shaft because I don't like it wrapped around. because it'll, you know, when you're in the water, it snags seaweed and and all that kind of stuff. So I ran it up through the shaft, and I drilled a little hole, popped a grommet in it, and popped it out, and it's attached to the remote that way. So it's a little bit more streamlined, and that was a question I was going to ask, and Phil beat me to it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
On yours, did you drill the hole in your middle shaft tube, or did you actually draw it in the mounting piece that the remote control mounts on?
No, in the shaft.
Okay, in the shaft.
Let me show you.
Because obviously that's another option.
Yeah, because it just looks, Steve, it looks awful having that wire, because the wire, I don't know if you probably hadn't had to use a wire if you're not going in the water, but that wire looks kind of, Mickey Mouse-ish, and it just looks kind of cheesy. So by getting rid of that wire just makes it easier. And I got a comment from my friend Rick Tumbleson, and he's saying the water and sand are going to get into the shaft anyway. You can't stop it. A drain hole just helps you flush it out, is what the drain hole is for, and clean it. You
Makes
can get it out easier with the drain hole.
If you can see in the back here where I ran the antenna up the back of the bottom, the lower rod and the dais shaft, can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
And I was going to ask you what you do with the extra slack for the wire, but I see what you did. It sort of wraps around your coil a little bit there, and then up it goes.
Yeah, it's not a lot of wire down here, because most of it is up and through here. You need the slack in here so you can collapse it and bring it out. Now, I've got it where it's taped here, so you can't really see it, but I drilled a hole in there, and I put a little grommet in there, rubber grommet, because you don't want the edges of the hole, and it just comes out, and it's all fixed up. So, and it's very, very, what do you want to call it? Aerodynamic, for want of a better word.
Yeah, it makes it look nicer, and you don't have that wire to deal with.
Yeah.
And I personally do like having the wire, because if you've had to replace a coil because of the coil wire frayed, I think that's an ingenious design, and those antennas are relatively cheap. I think they're less than $30 for the kit.
Oh, wow.
So,
Yeah, they're not bad at all.
yeah, so I think it was a smart move on Deus, because I like the wireless feature. If you're land hunting, relic hunting, you don't need the wire, and if you're water hunting, you use it, or diving, you could use that. So I like that hole in the rod. I think it's a good idea to do that myself.
Super. That's good.
So that'd be another option you could offer if they want it. If you're custom building for somebody, that one might be a good idea, because I would certainly want one, because I'm going to get one of your shafts. Hopefully you'll have me field test it, but I am definitely going to have one of your shafts, and that's some of the things that I'm going to want.
Yeah, perfect. And like you say, you mentioned it, and again, I just want to make that point. Little custom things like that, customizing, that's one of the things that I like to do. I like to try and make it to where, instead of a one size fits all shaft that you get with your machine, anybody who needs anything different, if you need something longer, you need something shorter, you want a drain hole, you want something done a little different, always happy to try and do everything I can to design something that works, exactly the way you want it. Yeah.
We've got a question from YouTube from Practical Ken. He would like to know if you have any kind of a different shaft for the Equinox that is more collapsible.
At this point, and I wish I had one in here and I don't, but at this point, yes, I do build a travel shaft for the Equinox, a 3-piece travel shaft. A lot of people want to know if there's one that's fully collapsible to where you don't have to remove any of the sections. I don't build one that way myself, because it gets into a whole lot of other parts that are needed. You need a larger cam lock, a second size of cam lock. You also then need an adapter, because once you make that upper shaft tube larger, if you want the whole thing to telescope, you then need an adapter for the control box to mount on, because that upper tube now is going to be larger than standard. So there's a lot of extra parts there. But what I do is, again, my cam locks, just to show, what I do is I offer a 3-piece shaft. The top section, which is the part that has the control box and the arm cuff, it detaches. So all you do is unscrew your coil cable from your control box, open the cam lock, and slide it out. That's all there is to it. So that's the top section. At that point, then the middle section is just like this. The middle section is now detached from the top. You take your lower rod, open your cam lock, and you collapse it down. It collapses all the way inside the middle shaft. So what you end up with when you're going to travel is one piece, which is the upper section that has your control box and your arm cuff. And then you have one other piece, which is the lower rod telescoped inside the middle shaft. So you're carrying two pieces at that point. So I do that. And again, like I've mentioned, that can be custom. We can make those lengths. If you have a specific, carry-on bag or maybe a hard case, like a Pelican case that you need those things to fit into, I can custom design it to fit, perfectly in your case or your carry-on or whatever we need. And I've done a number of those. They're actually pretty popular. And that's something that I don't have well represented on my website, but I get a lot of customers saying, hey, can you build me a travel shaft? I do it all the time. So, and people have been pleased with them. They work well.
Can you use the counterweight on the collapsible travel shaft?
Yep. I can make it counterweight ready or standard, either way you want it. And just for people that don't know, I'll make that point here.
I'm
for
sure
those that don't know, yeah, there you go. This is a standard shaft, just regular end cap. The only difference between a standard and a counterweight ready shaft when you're for ordering purposes, that's a standard. It just has a regular end cap. You can't attach the counterweight. But you see the way the counterweight is attached there on Phil's shaft. And the way that's accomplished is right here at the end, there's this threaded fitting and a threaded end cap. He's showing that. You just unscrew the end cap and screw the counterweight into this threaded fitting. But my point is, this is a counterweight ready shaft. So the only difference is the end cap. So yes, I can make a travel shaft standard. I can make a travel shaft that's counterweight ready, either way.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and that counterweight is a nice feature on Steve's rods, because if you're running that 15-inch coil, either the Coil Tech or the Mind Lab, that counterweight just gets the job done a whole lot easier having that.
Especially too, Phil, for tall guys like you, when you have that coil extended out there, even the 11-inch coil,
Yes.
it gets very unbalanced and it torques your elbow a lot.
Right.
So counterweight, it really makes a difference.
Yeah, and it's
You make a really good point there. That's something I would like to discuss, just to take a minute for that. You made a really good point. The longer you run your shaft, this is for anybody, whether you have a counterweight or not. The longer you run your shaft, the more nose heavy it's going to feel. And it's, to not get into the physics and everything else, it's simply leverage. The longer your lever, meaning your shaft, the more that coil weight is it's going to feel heavier the longer your shaft is. And it torques your elbow, it torques your wrist. So if you can, and I know some people don't like to, especially beach hunters, they want to extend their shaft really long so they can get a big sweep arc. And I understand that. But if you can do it, an easy way to make your shaft feel, or your machine feel, less nose heavy is just shorten the length a little bit. Shorten that lower rod length just a little bit, and it won't be as nose heavy. But either way, that's what the counterweight's designed to deal with, is that nose heavy feeling. When you're holding your machine like this, with a heavy coil at the end, the coil is pushing down. It's the weight of the coil, and so you're constantly having to twist your wrist to try and hold that coil up, and that's where you feel the fatigue and the soreness that develops for some folks, is fighting that coil that it wants to push down, and you're having to twist your arm to lift it up. Well, putting a counterweight on the end lifts it for you. It does some of that work for you, and that's the idea. It just makes it easier to swing.
And for the folks who are asking on the page, yes, I have the counterweight in stock and the Steve's rod for the Equinox. Now that brings up a good question. On my list of questions, you can get counterweights for other Detector brand rods, correct? You were showing
you just gave me a terrific segue. I wanted to show this shaft right here. This is a brand new thing that I'm offering. For a long time, I've been offering 2-piece lower rods for Garrett Ace machines. It's just a 2-piece lower rod. It attached to your Garrett upper shaft. And that's what I offered for the longest time, and I still do. But if you're an AT user, an AT Pro, AT Max, AT Gold, I can now build a complete shaft, and it's in this upper S shaft is carbon fiber. The handle's carbon fiber. It's in black, but you can get the tubes any color you want. And so you can now get a complete shaft. Now that I can offer a complete shaft for the AT series, I can therefore make it counterweight ready, just like you asked. I couldn't do that before because I wasn't building the upper shaft, but I can now. So yes, for pretty much for any shaft that I build, I can make them counterweight ready. So whether you're buying an Excalibur shaft or a Sovereign or a Gold Monster, whatever you're buying, you have the choice of counterweight ready or standard.
Yeah, because that AT Pro and AT Max always felt they were nose heavy anyway on their stock shafts. I never liked that stock shaft. It just felt a little, out of kilter. It just it didn't feel right. So that's awesome that you can do that and put the weight on it.
One more thing I will say, another reason it feels a little bit out of kilter on the Garretts, I noticed, and there's a couple other machines that are the same way. They build this section between handle and arm cuff too short. And the shorter you have that section, remember we talked about the leverage of the coil on that long shaft fighting you. Right. Well, one way you fight back is to have a lever of your own,
right,
that you can kind of use with your elbow to help lift that, to help lift the coil. When you make that shorter, it's making you have to do more work. You don't have as much leverage. So I actually build this section here on my shaft I think it's about 1.5 inches longer, maybe 2 inches longer than the stock Garrett shaft. So that's another thing that helps to make it a little bit more comfortable.
Okay, and we're talking about counterweights. Real quick, I got a question here. This one is from John David, and he's using the Naka Macro Legend, and he says, can you get a counterweight for that detector because it's hurting his arm sometimes?
Again, we're back to that non-round shaft issue, and there's this little fitting that fits into the end of the shaft is round because it has to slide in there and be epoxied in place. I don't have a fitting at this point that would fit into a non-round shaft. It would have to be a specially designed fitting to fit in that type of shaft, and I don't have one. So for that particular machine, my apologies, but no, I don't have one.
We got a question from YouTube from Randy Goodnow. He wants to know if you can make the counterweight screw connection metal and not plastic because the plastic can break.
Actually, I have already done that. That was a change I made probably 18 months ago, perhaps. For that reason, I now make those the insert, the insert that you screwed into is now made out of black anodized powder coated aluminum. So it is a more durable fitting now.
So what were we talking about? Were we talking about the end here, or were we talking about the end on here?
He would the ones on the. He could be talking about either one. They're both aluminum now. When I started, they were both made out of. And what would happen is, on occasion, I probably had a handful of customers where they've got their counterweight screwed in, and they'll set their machine, say, up against their car, and it slides off and boom, hits the ground. And that force of it hitting the ground, because there's so much weight in the counterweight, it puts that stress on the end of the counterweight there where it screws in. So some folks, there's been a handful of people that have either broken the counterweight, the little threaded portion that screws in broke, or the threaded fitting inside the shaft has broken. So I have since, to try and alleviate that, I've since gone to black anodized aluminum for both of those. The insert is aluminum, and the one on the end of the counterweight is aluminum. The one you have there is probably aluminum.
Yeah, it is. It's aluminum. Yeah. That's what I was looking at, trying to figure out what was plastic.
It used to be. Early on, those were plastic.
Yeah, well, that's a nice setup, and I like your clamping system too. That's a nice. Yeah, the cam locks on there are nice. So it's a nice.
That's one other thing that I probably should mention to people. A lot of people, I want to know about buttonholes. Do I need buttonholes on the shaft? And what I like to tell people is buttonholes on a shaft to me are just tedious. They're time consuming. They make it, not easy to adjust your lower rod length. They make it not easy to disassemble your shaft. And what I like to tell people is the only reason that you need to have a button on your lower rod and buttonholes in your middle shaft is when your cam lock is not strong enough to connect your shaft sections together with no movement, no play, nothing. Like a twist lock. Most manufacturers use a twist lock. A twist lock by itself is not strong enough on its own to lock these two sections together. So therefore, that button on the lower rod and the buttonholes in the middle shaft are kind of a supplemental attachment system. So when you close your twist lock, you can still twist these. They'll still move. That button and buttonhole keep that from happening. So that's why manufacturers use it. However, one of the things that I wanted to do on all my shafts was eliminate the need for a button and a buttonhole. To me, they're just tedious and unnecessarily tedious, because if you choose and design a proper cam lock that will lock these sections together, solidly, you eliminate that need. And the way that I achieve that is not only is it a solid cam lock to begin with, but this little thumb screw here, I don't know if you can see that, but that thumb screw is an adjustment. And what it adjusts is how tightly your shaft clamps. So I'm going to loosen this way up. I'm going to loosen the thumb screw. I'm going to clamp it closed, and I'll twist, and you can see that lower rod is moving. Well, all that means is your clamp is not adjusted tightly enough. So you open it back up, you turn your thumb screw a couple of turns clockwise, and you clamp it shut. Whoops, didn't quite get it. Let me do it this way. Anyway, you turn it, you clamp it, and you try again. I can still get it to move a little bit, just not quite tight enough. Give it another quarter turn. Now it won't move at all. It's rock solid. And that's usually a one-time adjustment. You don't have to do that every time you use it. But when you first get the shaft, you adjust that tension to where you want it. Once you get it right, it's as solid as can be. It can't move. It can't wobble. And that's why when I get a customer that says, are you sure I don't need buttonholes? Are you sure the clamp will work to hold these in place tightly? I can say absolutely, no question about it, because you have complete control over how tightly that cam lock clamps the lower rod. So yeah, it's something I really like about the cam lock, and people have really come to appreciate that part of the design.
Okay, we've got a question from YouTube. A guy wants to know if you make a shaft for the dual field.
The dual field.
That'd be like a white.
Yeah, machine.
Yeah.
I will say that I have never tried to. I assume it uses round tubes, which means I probably could. But to back up, as long as you have a machine that uses round tubes, the chances are I can design a shaft for it. It would require a little bit of back and forth between myself and the customer, because I don't own a dual field. So if a customer is comfortable with taking some measurements, particularly if they know how to use like a digital caliper, one of the things you always need to know when you're going to design a shaft is what's that distance between the coil ears, because you got to get that right for that lower rod plastic piece. But as long as they can get me those measurements, the shaft diameter, the distance between the coil ears, I can pretty much design for any machine that uses round tubes. So my answer would be I haven't yet, but we probably could.
And in colors.
And in colors, that's right.
Because a lot of people like colors. A lot of the ladies may be looking at like a, the pink ribbon cancer colors, breast cancer color. That would be, a killer product.
Yeah, I had one question on the sheet from Facebook. What are the chances of getting a shaft with USA colors? I'm sure there are plenty of people would be on board for that one.
I have actually built a shaft for somebody. There was a guy who wanted a patriotic USA color type shaft. So what I did was I built him a 3-piece travel shaft for his Equinox. And we made, the top section was blue. The middle section was red. The lower rod, I have a silver color that's really light, almost a whitish color. So we made it in that whitish silver color. And he really liked it. He enjoyed it. So yeah, I could do that if that sounds like something you'd like.
Hey, Steve, give out your website real quick, because I had somebody ask the website.
Yeah, it's www.stevesdetectorrods, STEVESDETECTORRODS.com. And then my email address is steve@stevesdetectorrods.com. And
right now, folks, we have Steve's Equinox shafts in stock. We have those, and of course, we get others. I had Steve make a lower and middle shaft for my Torsace, so I know we can make just about any shaft there is. because
And as soon as he gets the Deus shafts out, you'll have those in stock.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yep.
So we could do that. And that was another question on the list was, are you going to make, this was from Tim Naylor, any plans on making a carbon fiber for the Deus too? And you've already answered that one. So it looks like I see Jeff has got the banner rolling by. My banner, Jeff, while you were on vacation, just was stationary. It didn't roll by the screen. So we're in for a treat. Now we have the rolling banner again.
Well, you got the
It is
job.
snazzy.
Yeah,
That's
Steve,
all that matters.
Jeff was on vacation for a few weeks in Canada, so I had
Oh,
to
wow.
run the live stream, and it was loads of fun. Let me tell you.
I think if I lived in Florida, I'd probably have to make some trips to Canada as well.
Yeah. We had a question from YouTube from Shannon Bortner. She's not sure how to ask this. Will the carbon fiber rod help with the coil ears on the knocks from breaking as easy? I have a stiffener on it. I think I want to take that one as the answer is no, because the lower rod has nothing to do with the coil ears. You want to weigh in there, Steve and Phil?
I'll weigh in after Steve.
Yes, I will say this. Mine Lab's official position is that coil ears are breaking because people are allowing their washers to wear down, which then reduces the width of this lower rod piece. If you think of the width as being the plastic part and the washers that stick out, as the washers wear down, you're making that width smaller. So it becomes smaller than the distance between the coil ears. So in response, people will tighten their bolt tighter, and then the rubber wears some more, and they tighten the bolt some more. And Mine Lab's position is that is putting stress on the coil ears, because instead of them being parallel, they start to become bent inward as you tighten that bolt, and that's what causes the breakage. So my advice to people is a couple things. Number one, keep an eye on your coil, on your rubber, on your washers. I'm a land hunter. I don't hunt in the water, so my washers never wear down. You don't have the abrasiveness of the sand working against you there. But for people who are water hunters, particularly, keeping an eye on those washers and making sure. And all you have to do is look. If you see your lower your ears on your coil bent inward instead of being parallel, if they're bent inward, that's a good sign that your washers have worn down a little bit. So what I do is I try to always make sure that people are using new washers. But the other thing that I sell, and I think Gigmaster had talked about this. They started making these spacers, these real thin spacers for use with the stock Mine Lab shaft. And I think it might have been Detector that was offering those. But those are the teardrop shaped ones. And of course, my washers are round. So I also have some of those spacers available. They're 0.2 of a millimeter in thickness. And so you can use, as your washer wears down, instead of having to then buy a new set of washers, if you just remove the washer, put one of those spacers in behind the washer, and then install your washer in on top of it, you have effectively increased that distance by 0.2 of a millimeter. If you do it on both sides, that's 0.4 of a millimeter. So I offer those in 10 packs. And what that allows you to do is it allows you, if you put all 5 of them on one side and the other 5 on the other, you would increase or push out the washer 1 millimeter on either side. The idea there is so that if you want to be careful and not break coil ears, and you want to make sure you're keeping your ears from being bent inward, using those spacers, being proactive enough to keep an eye on it. And when you see, oh, my rubber washers have worn down a little bit, my coil ears are bent inward a little bit, take it apart, put a spacer or two in behind there, tighten it back up. And what you're looking for is you want those coil ears to be parallel to each other. Yeah. When they're locked in, the bolts tightened, you want them to be parallel, not bent inward. So you put enough spacers in to where when you tighten your bolt down, those ears are horizontal or parallel. Right. That's what Mine Lab says will prevent the coil ears from breaking. And I think they're probably right.
I think it's 2 factors. I think one is for us beach hunters, you get that you wear the rubber washer down, then you get some salt and sand in there, and you got the rubber, you got two hard plastic surfaces running against each other with a little sand, and it's like sandpaper. And you're
Absolutely.
doing the and you're sanding that coil, you're thinner, and you're tightening it up. So yeah, I always tell people get a bag of coil, the teardrop washers, and change those out a lot. And that would probably cut down on that. But I still think the design could use a little thicker plastic myself. I just,
That's
I
the
just
part I didn't want to say. I agree with you. I think the coil ears are just made a little too thin. It's
yeah,
not quite the
if
right
it was
plastic. It's
thicker,
not quite the right thickness.
right? If it was thicker,
We said it.
hearing. I said it, and if it was a little thicker, then you wouldn't have to change the washers as often. And I just think they would have less problems with that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
change
agree
the
with you.
washers.
And you know, the thing of it is that's the only manufacturer that I have seen, and I've seen a ton of it that has problems with that happening. So
Yeah, I
okay,
agree. I used
into
to.
that. Let's do a giveaway.
Yes, let's do a
Sounds good.
giveaway. The banner's rolling. Let's do it.
Yeah. Now Steve was really nice, and he, you know, when he and I were talking about him coming back on the show, he said, "Let's do 3."
Oh,
Okay. The
awesome.
grand prize winner is going to win anything off Steve's website up to 160 bucks. You go, you pick it out, you let Steve know what it is, that you're going to be the grand prize winner. Boom, it's yours. Now, the two other winners, second and third prize winners, you get a 50% off coupon, anything that Steve makes, but you got to pay shipping. I mean, that's a killer deal right there. So, as you know, you had to enter on Facebook, YouTube. You had to use a phrase, and that phrase was Steve's Detector Rods are made for me, which has, if you've been listening tonight, you know that he custom makes whatever, whenever for you. So it doesn't get any better than that. Now, as the rules go, number one, you have to be a member on the YouTube or on the Facebook page. You got to be watching because you're going to have 3 minutes once I call your name to text or messenger to the phone number scrolling along the bottom of the screen. And I want you to text with your name and then you are here because I've got the names right here. You have 3 minutes to do that. If you don't within 3 minutes, we're going to go on to somebody else. Then what you must do, and this is the only way you're going to get your prize, is you must email to treasuretalkshow@gmail.com. That's up there. You must email your information, name, address, phone number, what you want, and we'll get it to Steve, and then you'll get your prize and everything will be good. So get your fingers ready because you're going to have 3 minutes. It is 7:53 right now, so by 7:56, if you haven't texted or messengered, Phil or myself, we're going on to somebody else. Grand prize winner is Dennis Allen, Gene P for a 50% off, and Pete Hunter for a 50% off. You got 3 minutes, guys, to text or messenger Phil or myself. So let's get her done.
3 minutes to text us. And I have to say, when Jeff was on vacation, I got to do the random name picker. That's pretty interesting how that works. You put all the names in it and it just spits them out to you. So it's a cool little software that's available on the internet. So that's a neat way to do that, Jeff. And it was pretty simple for me to do it. All righty, I got some other questions here.
Yeah.
For Steve. Is there certain maintenance? This is from Jim Southern. Is there a certain maintenance to perform on the inside of the carbon rod to keep water and sand from building up in it?
That's kind of back to that drain hole again. I'm not a water hunter, so I don't get anything in my shaft. But if you do, and you don't have a drain hole, rinse those out with water is no problem at all. At the end of the hunt, if you have a counterweight ready shaft, it makes it pretty easy. Just unscrew the cap on the end, and you can squirt a hose up in there or whatever. But the arm cuff holes would serve the same purpose. If you turn it upside down, so you can spray it out and get that stuff out. It will drain back out through the arm cuff holes. So.
Yeah, and I would think it's important to take those apart every once in a while because otherwise, for land hunting, you don't have the issue. But for us, even carbon fiber with salt and seawater is going to seize up and like weld in place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's I know water hunters have to go through a whole lot more effort to keep their equipment clean for those reasons, but it's really easy. You know, with these cam locks, you just flip it open, it slides right out. And so cleaning those up after when you're salt hunting, I would recommend doing that because, like you said, even though I tried to design this clamping system so that it won't seize up like a twist lock will, nonetheless the if it's not cleaned periodically, I'm sure that the lower rod can still seize up in the cam lock itself. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and then I have a question here while we're waiting for the winners. This is from Tom Becker, and he says, Steve, do you make a 2-inch diameter sand scoop rod or shaft?
2-inch. Here's what I will say to that. I don't have 2 inches in stock, but I can make a scoop handle pretty much any diameter to fit any scoop. It's just a matter of, again, I would need some measurements. We would need to talk it through to get it, because obviously I don't have a scoop in hand that has a 2-inch handle, but making one is not a problem. It's just a matter of ordering an appropriate sized tube. And at that point I can build it for you pretty much any size. So that goes for any other model scoop as well. Right now I offer handles pretty routinely for T-Rex, for Stealth, Extreme. I offer them for Staver. I offer them for Coob. And that's just because those are ones customers have asked for. And so I'll build some and keep them in stock. But if you have one that isn't one that I've mentioned, there's no reason I can't build one that size. It's just a matter of getting the right diameter of tube. So I would say I haven't yet, but yes, I could.
Yeah, you get a winner.
Yeah, I got one winner, but the time is up on the grand prize winner, Jean P. She's got a 50%er coming. Now we're going to do another name. We've got Uncle Beep as a grand prize winner. If you are here, you've got 3 minutes. And then we are going to do Bob White for the next 50% coupon if you are here.
Yeah, this is Steve's ride here for the Stealth, because I sell a lot of the Stealth scoops, and actually I was out of Stealth scoops. Nobody knew it, but probably for 3 weeks I just had one left. So now I've got plenty of them back in stock. Because I don't know, are you having trouble getting materials, Steve?
Oh yeah, it's gotten quite a bit harder. Everything's getting more difficult. It takes longer to get. Stuff's more expensive. Shipping's more expensive. But I try to stay out ahead of it as best as I can. But I will say I appreciate patience of customer, especially when somebody orders something that's a special order item. It used to be that I could get special order parts without too much trouble. But it takes a little longer now. But people are pretty patient. They understand, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's amazing at what we're going through right now. You think that COVID's over and we'll be back to normal, but no, now we're still having trouble getting different products in. But
it's difficult.
Yeah, but I've got the handles, and I have both sizes of the Stealth scoops in stock, and of course I have Steve makes the handles for the T-Rex also, and I've got all 3 sizes of those in stock now. So we got plenty of stainless scoops if somebody's interested in a scoop. We normally have them in the shop, and Big Poppy helps me put them together on Saturday.
Actually, he's not eating sausages.
Yeah, actually, he's the one who puts them all together. I should be honest about that.
See, they go together really good because he's always got sausage grease on his fingers.
Yeah, they can slide that
right in there.
You guys are making me hungry.
Yeah.
Well, we got Uncle Beep texted. He's the grand prize winner. Now, Bob White, you've got 1 minute left to text or messenger for a 50% off coupon.
Yes.
Or I'm going to go to give it to somebody else.
Who was the winner again, Jeff?
Which one?
The main prize winner.
Uncle Beep.
Uncle Beep was the main. But Bob White is. That sounds like a Bob White. That sounds like a quail.
Yeah. Well, I hope he cheeps in here. Tweet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quail.
Yeah, he's one of my prior customers.
Yeah. So, what else is going on with you? Have you been doing much hunting, or are you working too much?
Well, I'm working too much, but the other problem is, we essentially here in Norman have had zero rain since about the first week in June. So the ground is just rock hard. You
Oh,
couldn't get a
man.
shovel through the ground right now. So I'm waiting for it to cool down and moisten up a little bit before I can really get out and do too much. I have a friend who's doing a little lake hunting. He's finding some jewelry here in some of the local lakes, but turf hunting's hard right now.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Okay, it's time to do the third winner.
Okay.
The guy Bob White didn't show up. So Dan Nelson, if you are watching, you got a text or messenger right away because we're almost out of time. Well, we are out of time, but we're going to wait for you. So let's get it done.
So who was the winner?
Dan Nelson.
Dan Nelson. So Dan, you got just a little bit of time because
Yep.
he's got 2 minutes to call it.
Like he said, 2 minutes to Wapner. Yeah.
2 minutes to Wapner.
Yeah, I watched Judge Judy, not Wapner. Joe will tell you that. Judge Judy's on every day. Oh, it's too funny.
That's my great grandmother. It was her favorite show, Judge Judy.
Oh, I like Judge Judy. I do.
Yep.
I just like what yells at the people.
That's right.
That's the things I like to say a lot of times, but I just can't. So.
Now, sometimes I think she just wants to slap him.
Yes, he does.
So we're going to give him 1 more minute. And Tim Naylor wants to know if you found a gold coin.
Oh. Tim Naylor, if I found a gold coin, you'd have known it because you'd have heard me yelling. That's at the top of the bucket list. I'm sure I'm not the only one, but I would love to find a U.S. gold coin.
Yeah.
Have not.
That's on the top of my list, too. I talk about it daily. And I can say I found a gold coin for a customer in his car, but that's about it. And I can say my wife found a gold coin at a seeded hunt for whites years ago. And she's real proud of that. She lets me know she found it, and I haven't. So that's one of those
beautiful
things.
coins.
Yes. It's just
okay. We're good. Got all our winners. All the winners, you know what you got to do. You must send the email, treasuretalkshow@gmail.com, name, address, phone number, and what you want. And we know which one gets the Gene P. and Dan Nelson get the 50% off coupon. You do have to pay shipping. Uncle Beep, you're good to go. Just send in what you want, and Steve will ship it to you, and you'll be in like a burglar through the upstairs window.
awesome. Well, I guess it's that time. So, Steve, thank you for coming on here with us, and thank you for talking and sharing your wisdom on the detector shafts and all you do. And, of course, we love selling your products in the store. And thank you, Jocelyn, for giving me a hand here. And thank you, Jeff, for coming back from vacation and running the show here today. And
Well,
thank you to all of our members who are on here watching this each week. We appreciate you. I think over on Facebook, we got over 5,000, and we got a load on YouTube too. So thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on. Thanks to everybody who watched. Appreciate it. Always happy to join, and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's fun.
We're certainly glad that you joined us tonight. Everybody learned a lot. Thank you so much for the wonderful prizes that you gave away. And I'm looking forward to that day is 2 shaft, Steve. So keep me posted. And if you want some field testing, I'm your guy.
Sounds good. We'll do.
As soon as you get it ready, I'm going to have one. So we'll see everybody. I want to thank you for watching. Remember, Treasure Tales will be back Thursday night, 8 p.m.
Awesome.
So we're off hiatus for the summer. So we'll see you then. And everybody, thanks for watching. And we'll see you later. And happy hunting and dig deeper.
Happy hunting and dig deeper, friends. Have fun.